Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Clackamas County Board of Commissioners issues and updates for this September 4 already, 2024 issues meeting. Administrator Gary Schmidt, you're up.
Thank you, Chair Smith and Commissioners. Welcome back from your recess. Our staff support today, County Councilor Jane Vetto, and a new clerk to the board, Andrew Jaraki. This is his first official day as your clerk. Tony Marinek has been promoted to another role in the office of the administrator. So Tony is going to shadow today to help Andrew. But welcome, Andrew, to your new role. I'm going to go ahead on the agenda because we have another elected official in the room. So we're going to start with Board of County Commissioners, request for consent agenda, elected officials, the clerk's office. Item 1, approval of a goods and services contract with Blue Crest for a mail ballot sorter and related software. Contract value is $689,931. Funding through clerk fees and $289,771 in budgeted county general funds. Clackamas County Clerk McMullen and Michael Newgard from the clerk's office. Go ahead, please.
Welcome.
Good morning.
Please introduce yourself.
Yes, of course. Thank you, Chair Smith and Commissioners. My name is Catherine McMullen. I'm the elected county clerk for Clackamas County.
Michael Newgard, Analyst 2 for the clerk's office.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Of course. Yeah, we are here for a request for the consent agenda for an approval to purchase our mail ballot sorter. As you may remember, this was in our budget last fiscal year, and then we carried it over into this fiscal year. And so we went through a very competitive RFP process, selected a vendor, and what we have before you is a contract with Blue Crest for the sorter. The contract value is $689,931, and that includes the sorter itself, software, and maintenance for a number of years. And the funding is through clerk fees, and then about 42% of it is in our budgeted county general funds, which is the level that we're supported by the general fund this fiscal year.
Any other comments?
I just have one question.
Yeah, I'm not sure who's up first. Ben, go ahead.
Good morning, Clerk. Thanks for coming to present to us today. Appreciate it. Can you, just for those of us that aren't elections experts, can you tell us what this thing does?
Of course, yeah. The mail ballot sorter is pretty much the first step in receiving your voted ballot. So we run each of the voted ballots through the sorter. It takes an image of the signature, measures for thickness, make sure it's the right election, and then we compare that image, that signature, to the image on your voter registration to make sure that your signature matches. And so in the election we have coming up, we have about 315,000 voters. If we get 86% turnout, that's going to be, more than 200,000 ballots that we're going to be running through that sorter just for that election. Our current mail ballot sorter, which we've had for a number of years, is it's approaching its end of life. So this is a scheduled replacement for that piece of equipment.
Thank you for explaining that.
Commissioner Shull.
Well, Commissioner West asked one of my questions, but so when this machine assesses the signatures, what percent accuracy does it operate at? And do you have a second backup on actual sets of eyes to confirm the accuracy of this counter?
Yeah, so the primary role is to capture that image, and then the first thing that we do is we use ASV, or signature verification software, and that does exact matches. So if your signature matches exactly on your ballot envelope to your voter registration record, that captures about 30 to 40% of those. And then the next step is that it's looked at by election workers who are sworn election workers that are paid from different political parties that then view and see if the signature is a match. If it is not, then a supervisor looks at that before challenging that ballot.
Okay. And is this machine, this Blue Crest machine and its software, is it totally confined to the Clackamas County Clerk's office?
Yeah, it's not connected. It has air gaps and things, and so we only use it to upload the data and then download the data. And also no tallying of ballots take place at this machine. It is the machine that captures the information on the outside of the envelope.
And so does the Secretary of State's office have visibility on the operation in your clerk's office of this sort of machine?
No, not necessarily.
Okay,
no.
good. Thank you.
Okay.
That's all my questions.
Yeah. Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, I have no quarrel with change of machinery. I don't have any quarrel with the term nearing the end of its useful life, but that term is often used, and sometimes they actually have a value to them. So what is the disposition of the existing equipment when the new one's
We
installed?
don't yet have a plan for that. We would have to consult, because it is a piece of elections equipment. We have to make sure we're disposing of it or moving it on to a new role responsibly.
Is there a market value is what I'm really getting? Is there an opportunity to maybe get some remuneration from another county or government somewhere else in the country?
There may be. It's something that companies use often in sorting mail, and so it may get another life as that, but we're going to be looking into that. That's a great question. Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay, thanks.
Assuming this is approved today, how long will it take you to get the new machine, and who does the setup and beta testing on it?
So our goal is that it's going to be in place and active for the May special district election in 2025. We're going to be using the existing sorter, not changing anything in advance of a general election for this November, and then working with facilities to do any needed changes to the back of house to make sure it fits. And then we're working directly with the vendor on placement, software setup, training, and that's all part of this package that we have before you.
Okay, it's good, I guess, not to make changes right now before the election. Any further questions or comments seen on this? Seeing no objections, thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We'll go back to the published agenda. Chair, would you please convene as the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District Board of Directors?
I will recess as a Board of County Commissioners and convene as a North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District.
You are now meeting as the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District Board of Directors. First, Advisory Board appointments. Andrew, go ahead, please.
The Milwaukee Community Center Advisory Board, staffed by the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District, has one opening on their commission due to a term expiration. This recruitment process has found one application, and one is being recommended for appointment to the board. The recommendation is Virginia Seitz for a first term ending October 30th, 2027.
Questions or comments? I'll entertain a motion.
I
Move
move
to
to approve. Go ahead.
Move to approve the Milwaukee Center Advisory Committee recommendation.
Seconded.
Commissioner Savas has moved we approve the Milwaukee Community Center Advisory Board recommendation of Virginia Seitz, and Commissioner Scholl has seconded the motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Commissioner Scholl,
Aye.
Commissioner West,
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader, Commissioner Savas,
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you. You're still meeting as the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District. This is request for consent agenda. Item 1, approval of an amendment to an intergovernmental grant agreement with the Oregon Department of Human Services for transportation services and equipment. The amendment adds 1 year. Grant value remains $25,000 over 2 years. Funding is through the state of Oregon. No county general funds are involved. Chiaselli, Director of the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District, please come forward and go ahead.
Welcome.
Thank you, Gary. Good morning, Chair Smith and directors. My name is Chiaselli. I'm the Director of North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District. In March of last year, the board approved a grant agreement with the state of Oregon for $25,000. Those funds were used to purchase and install security cameras at the Milwaukee Community Center. Approximately $989 remains in that contract. The first amendment before you today is to actually extend the duration of that grant agreement to March 31st of 2025. That van will be used to transport recreation program participants and supplies.
Commissioner West?
I think I'm okay.
He's all right.
No questions.
Questions or comments? Seeing no objections, thank you.
Item 2, approval of an amendment to an intergovernmental grant agreement with the Oregon Department of Human Services for transportation services and equipment. The amendment adds $25,000. Total grant value is increased to $50,000 for 2 years. Funding through the state of Oregon. No county general funds are involved.
So thank you, Gary. So for this second grant amendment, as Gary mentioned, there will be additional $25,000 from this grant through the state of Oregon to, again, purchase this recreation program vehicle, and the remaining funds needed for the purchase of the van are allocated in the current fiscal year budget.
Questions or comments? Yes.
Kia, this is for a new electric van. Have you done a cost takeoff comparison for the purchase of an electric van compared to just a conventional internal combustion van?
So thank you for that question, Director Scholl. I don't have the cost for you today as to what the comparative cost is for a gas-powered van versus an electric van, but I will say the electric van is approximately $90,000 to purchase it. Our expectation is that the operational expenses of an electric van over time will be less, and the maintenance will be less, but the actual purchase might be more. I can provide that information to you by email and share it with the rest of the directors.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner West?
I once had to take a vote regarding an electric vehicle as a city councilor of Wilsonville. Pantera Bus. We had grant money. Their money was coming in to purchase it. That company's gone bankrupt. And a lot of municipalities are wondering what's going to happen with that. This is not a bus, to be fair. I just don't know whether or not buying an electric van for this capacity is the best use of taxpayers' dollars in general. Who is the company that the bus will be purchased from? Do they have a track record? Is there stability there? We've seen a lot of these things not go so well for local governments. I'm just a little gun shy. I'm not saying no. I just want to make sure we're being good stewards of not just Clackamas County tax dollars, but those from the state or wherever else this grant is coming from. I don't know, Board, what you guys think, but I'm a little gun shy about just from my past experience.
Do you have any comments about that?
I don't have any personal experience or professional experience with electric vans. I will say that this is a common kind of next step for a lot of organizations to electrify their fleets as well as their equipment. There is also kind of a ease of use for staff because we can actually plug this in at night and then we can access the van in the morning. So it's actually it's a great use case for an electric vehicle. We will be going through county fleet, so we won't be buying this piece of equipment just on the open market. We'll go through the county's process. So my expectation would be that the county staff will help us make the right selection. But I can provide that information to you by email as to which manufacturer will be going to purchase, if you're interested.
This will be up tomorrow at the business meeting under consent agenda. And I always ask the question, does any commissioner wish to pull any item? This item can be pulled, set aside, but I will ask for a second vote on it, at which time any commissioner can vote how they please on it. Just a point of reference. Commissioner Savas?
Yeah, I don't have a quarrel with purchasing the van for comparatively to a bus than $1 million for a bus. Well, this is a lot less, so I don't have a quarrel with that. And also recognizing that if the state mandate is to cease or ban gasoline-powered vehicles, and so is the federal government, that getting ourselves tooled up that way is a logical step. I agree that the overall maintenance on the lighter-duty vehicles is a lot less over time than a gas-powered vehicle. A bus, I can't really speak to that, but I would also say that I say that all in the context is as long as we don't sell it in advance of what one might determine is the end of its useful life. If we keep it and use it, we'll get our bang for the buck out of it. If we just keep it for 5 years and sell it, I might lean towards a gasoline-powered van.
All right. Any more questions or comments? Seeing no objections, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Chair, would you please convene as the Water Environment Services Board of Directors?
I will recess as the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District and convene as the Water Environment Services District Board.
These are requests for consent agenda for Water Environment Services. Item 1, approval of an amendment to a contract with Tyler Technologies for utility billing software and support. The amendment value is $152,481.69 for 2 years. And 2 years, increasing the total contract value to $781,874.32 for 24 years and 10 months. Funding is through Water Environment Services, Sanitary Sewer, and Surface Water Operating Funds. No county general funds are involved. Greg Geist, Director of Water Environment Services, Aaron Blue, Finance Manager for the district. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Gary. Good morning, Chair Smith, directors. This one is a little complicated, so I'm actually going to read what Aaron so graciously provided me. Today I'm presenting a request for approval of an amendment to Wes's contract with Tyler Technologies for Encode utility billing software. Wes has been using Encode since 2001 to bill and manage approximately 22,000 customer accounts. To give some background, the original contract covers annual software support and maintenance. Over the years, various amendments have been made to support system enhancements and to accommodate new modules such as integrated online and telephone payments. Amendment number 7, extends the contract term through June 30th, 2026, adds funds to cover annual software maintenance costs for fiscal years 2024-25 and 25-26, and funds transaction fees for online and phone payments through December 31st, 2024. The 6-month term for the transaction fees is necessary due to the vendor's decision to no longer support our third-party merchant services gateway. After extensive discussions with Tyler, Wes, and the county treasurer, the vendor proposed a new payment processing solution, which Wes is considering transitioning to in early 2025. We anticipate returning to the board before the end of the calendar year with a request for a new payment processing system, either with Tyler or otherwise, and related transaction fees once contracting details are finalized. With that, I'll take any questions.
Wow. Questions or comments from board? Seeing no objections, thank you.
Item 2, approval of an intergovernmental agreement with Clackamas County for right-of-way services. Total value is $225,000 for 5 years. Funding through Water Environment Services, Sanitary Sewer, and Surface Water Construction Funds. No county general funds are involved.
So you'll see this on DTD's consent agenda as well. We are in the process of expanding our collection system from essentially in Happy Valley at 172nd, about a half a mile out Troge Road to the east, and then up the Rock Creek drainage area to the northeast, essentially to the county line. There's 30 to 40 properties that are involved in that area that we will need to get easements for. DTD does this all the time. They have a right-of-way team, and we're simply partnering with them and reimbursing them for helping us with attaining all those easements that we're going to need for that project and a couple other ones. We're working together.
I like your term of words, reimbursing the property owners. I assume that we'll see those documents coming in later once the process takes place.
Yes, sure.
Further questions, commissioners? Seeing no objections.
Thank you. Chair, would you please convene as the Clackamas County Development Agency?
I will recess as the Water Environment Services District Board and reconvene as the Clackamas County Development Agency.
This is request for consent agenda for the Clackamas County Development Agency. Item 1, approval of a personal services contract with Harper Huff Peterson Regalis for construction services relating to the Southeast Monroe Street Improvements Project. Total value is $1,334,013. Funding is through North Clackamas Revitalization Area Funds. No county general funds are involved. Dan Johnson, Director of Transportation and Development. Go ahead, please.
Thank you so much, Chair Smith, Commissioners. This is a project that you've already approved design on. Design is essentially almost completed, which is great news. Essentially, we're looking to advertise for construction bids in fall of 2024 with estimating contract execution for construction sometime in early 2025. And we're looking at about a 15 to 18-month construction period for this particular project. This is one of a number of projects funded through the North Clackamas Revitalization Area, where there was a lot of emphasis on infrastructure improvements, east-west connectivity through that area. Essentially, what you see before you today is a opportunity to contract with Harper Huff Peterson Regalis to provide a number of different services associated with the construction of this project. Essentially, those include inspections, construction engineering, construction staking, contractor, and utility coordination. Preparation of record drawings and a post-construction survey. All of that is needed when constructing capital projects of this nature. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Questions on this? Seeing no objections, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Chair, would you please reconvene as the Board of County Commissioners?
I will recess at the Development Agency of Clackamas County and reconvene as the Board of County Commissioners.
You'll meet as the Board of County Commissioners for the rest of today's agenda. Next is request for consent agenda for the Board of County Commissioners. Next, Finance Department. Item 1, approval of a goods and services contract with Cone Incorporated for elevator maintenance and repair services at county facilities. Contract value not to exceed $235,150.47 for 4 years and 10 months. Funding is through departmental cost allocations, which does include a small portion of budgeted county general funds. Jeff Jorgensen is the Facilities Division Director in the Finance Department. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Chair Smith, Commissioners, and Mr. Schmidt. Just here to go ahead and for this contract to go through for Kone Elevators. We have 12 buildings that have elevators. We have 17 elevators and 3 ADA lifts. This is a 4-year, 10-month contract. It's basically for the maintenance, the contract for the maintenance of it. It would be a portion there if we have to go ahead and do like a shaft replacement like we had to on, elevator 1 here a couple months ago. But it's the maintenance contract for basically 5 years.
Commissioner Shaw.
Yes, good morning. Does this include a coverage for the courthouse elevators?
No. The new courthouse?
Yeah.
The new courthouse, no. The current courthouse, yes.
Okay.
So those will be eliminated when we dispose of the courthouse as seen fit by you.
Okay. Commissioner Savas?
Yeah, it's a question. I see the packet that this is the same company that's been doing it. So do we go out for bid for that, or we're just renewing it because we're happy?
Well, we're happy with it, but it's also basically in its agreement, national agreement. So but Kone has been very good. They've been responsive. We didn't have to go out for bids for it because it's, I can't remember the exact term of it. It's an agreement, national agreement with it. The state feds have.
But you did a bid, we did a bid process, yes, right?
Okay.
Or is this, are you just extending the current contract over and over, or is there a bid?
I do not believe we did a bid. It was
I'm sorry, there was not a bid.
So this was tied to a state contract?
yeah, that's a cooperative agreement.
Okay,
Yes.
all right,
Do a lot of these on cooperative agreements.
all right, thank you.
Commissioner West?
This is just anecdotal, personal observation. Since I've been here, our elevators seem to often be under some type of maintenance. There have been maybe a few jokes about a commissioner being stuck in the elevator. Are we having an issue with their elevators? Are we getting good service out of these individuals?
We're
this
getting good
company?
service out of these individuals.
What's up with their elevators?
The issue is that now this building is 20 years old, and we've been doing inspections. We want to go ahead and do more in-depth inspections. We've been talking about that for capital. As this building is 20 years old, getting older, we have 3 elevators. Are we going to have to go ahead and replace it just like we did with the cylinder number 1? But then, we have 16 to 18 years here in the DSB, the courthouse, all these. So we're looking at the elevators. Do we have to go ahead and put those in capital and put them on a sequence, just like roofs,
Okay.
HVAC systems? Elevators are getting older, and control systems probably been changed out every 10 years. So they do get older.
Okay, thank you.
Seeing no objections, thank you.
Thank you. Still on finance, item 2, approval of a subrecipient agreement with the Oregon Department of Emergency Management for infrastructure damaged in the 2024 ice storm. Anticipated agreement value is $518,000. Funding is through the Federal Emergency Management Agency. No county general funds are involved. Patrick Williams, Deputy Director of the Finance Department, and Daniel Nybauer, Disaster Management Director. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Gary. Good morning, Chair Smith. Good morning, Board. Here today seeking approval of our reimbursement application related to the ice storm earlier this year. I wanted just a point of clarification. Our total application is $518,000 at this time. Our anticipated reimbursement is about $390,000, which is 75% of our original application. So that 518 isn't what we're applying for to expect to get reimbursed. It's what we're applying for, and then FEMA applies their formula for our reimbursement.
What was damaged?
Roads, some buildings, culverts, bridges, and not a lot of damage, a lot of tree removal. There was a fairly large claim at the community college where we had used that as a staging facility. Daniel, if you could.
Sure, it was used as a warming shelter overnight, and there was a damage to the sidewalk, and so we reimbursed that, and we're getting some FEMA reimbursement for
I
that.
remember that. That was damage caused by people outside of your department, outside both departments.
I think it was caused by some heavy equipment that tore up the,
Okay.
tore up the parking lot a little
I guess
bit.
stuff happens. Thank you very much. So if the damage was 518 and our reimbursement is 398,000, where will the
388,
remainder?
excuse me, 388.
Huh?
388.
388.
Yeah, at this time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Where will the remainder, the balance difference come from?
Well, it was, make sure I articulate this accurately. It was previously budgeted funds, either through the general fund or a grant or other agreements. As you know, the disaster responses are the responsibility of the entire county, not just disaster management. And we were very fortunate that departments around the county gave up their staff and resources to support the event. So essentially, the remainder would just be absorbed in existing budgeted funds.
Got it. Thank you very much for that. Questions or comments? Seeing no objections, thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Next, Tourism Department. Item 1, approval of an amendment to a professional services contract with Travel Portland to implement portions of the Regional Tourism Plan. Amendment value is $177,743 for 1 year. Total contract value is increased to $336,200 for 2 years. Funding is through Travel Portland. No county general funds are involved. Samara Phelps is the Executive Director of Tourism. Go ahead, please.
Great. Good morning. Samara Phelps, Director of Tourism. And this is an amendment to an existing contract. We've come before you in multiple iterations, but what this does is it does allow us to program here locally some of the state funding that's dedicated to the regions. So it is getting these funds directly to our tourism needs here locally. And happy to answer any questions.
Commissioner West?
Is this just for item 1, or we also speak, we haven't spoke to item 2 yet, am I right? Just clarification.
Just item 1.
Sorry, okay, thank you, just clarifying.
Questions or comments for the presenter? Seeing no objections, thank you.
Now, item 2, approval of a professional services contract with Fish Marketing and Strategy to provide social media advertising management. Total contract value is not to exceed $675,000 over 5 years. Funding is through transient lodging tax. No county general funds are involved.
Great, thank you. So this item is a new contract for us. Social media advertising is a really valued tool to align priority messaging and have sophisticated communication and messaging within the tourism, so we can find the audience that matches with the need, so we can have the economic impact that we want. But it's also highly technical. So utilizing an agency to increases both our effectiveness and our efficiency in doing this work. For the advertising. So the majority of this contract is actually in the ad spend. The local company that we're going with here in Oregon is Fish, and their services are up to $34,000 a year, and the rest is in the actual advertising spend on the platforms.
Commissioner West?
$675,000 over 5 years. To promote tourism, I'm guessing like on TikTok, Instagram. Is it that type of advertising?
We do not do TikTok, but correct on Instagram and Facebook, YouTube.
And YouTube, okay. I don't know if you might have already said this, I might have missed it. What is the commission or the take from the company, and actually how much it goes to targeted ads out into the community?
Yeah, so up to $34,000 is for their technical services, for them optimizing the ads. That's what the company is being paid. That's the services portion of it.
Annually?
Up to $34,000 annually, correct.
Okay.
Yes. And then up to $100,000 in placements for the ads themselves.
Do you know what's the reach? Who are we touching here with these ads, and how big's that reach, and how many views and impressions?
Yeah, that's what they will do. They will optimize for the views on that. I don't have the numbers in front of you until they're doing the work, but we're happy to we report those out quarterly from the Tourism Development Council. So once that work is starting to get activated, we'd be happy to share that work, and it is watched by staff on a monthly basis in coordinating with the contractor.
And where's the funding coming from if it's not general fund? Could you touch on that again?
County transient lodging tax.
Okay. I'm curious, it seems a little expensive for the service provided. I have a little bit of knowledge in this space, but just kind of curious about what kind of the bang for the buck that you're getting to do this type of advertising.
Yeah, I can tell you that we did a competitive RFP process. We had a lot of applicants, and we picked both for the technical skills and also the cost effectiveness of their work. So,
Thank you. Thank you. That's all I have.
Commissioner Shaw?
Yes, Samara, good morning.
Good morning.
My questions are similar to Commissioner West's questions, and that is my concern about what are the performance parameters of this? How will you gauge the effectiveness of this? 34,000 times 5 is 164,000 for the 5-year contract for the contractor.
Correct.
So that leaves 511,000 for actually the actual advertisement fees, which seems like a lot of money. So I hope you're getting a tremendous amount of impact, positive impact for that kind of money. Thank you.
agreed.
Have you done this before with other companies?
We have done this type of work before, mostly in-house and utilizing small contractors. And it's just getting so technical that you need daily optimization, and having a staff person be sophisticated and able to focus on this the way it should be focused on. It's really more efficient to do it with somebody who's doing it every day and seeing it for multiple clients. So we're getting the most technical expertise that we can.
Okay. Further questions or comments? Seeing no objections.
Thank you. And before she walks away, so Samara Phelps, next week's her last week at Clackamas County. You know, Commissioner, she's moving on to become the CEO and president of Travel Lane County. An incredible promotion for her and great for the state of Oregon. So thank you, Samara. We'll have a party for you next week, but thank you for your service to Clackamas County and tourism.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, next, Health, Housing, Human Services. Item 1, approval of a subrecipient grant agreement with Northwest Family Services for expanding treatment of and recovery services for pregnant women with substance abuse disorders. Agreement value is $200,000 for 2 years. Funding is through opioid settlement funds. No county general funds are involved. Denise Swanson, Deputy Director of Health, Housing, and Human Services. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Chair Smith, Commissioners. So as you're aware, the BCC approved $1 million in opioid settlement funding for 6 community-based organizations through our NOFO process during your policy session in June. And this and the next 2 are the contracts that generated following your recommendations. So this one is for Northwest Family Services to provide outpatient treatments to 40 low-income pregnant and postpartum women in Clackamas County.
Really? Opioid money can be used for preventative health?
Particularly if the pregnant women are addicted.
Only for addicted pregnant women?
Mm-hmm. Yep, and the goal of the project is to break addiction cycles that run through families and lower the number of adverse childhood experiences, ACEs is the short for that, which are known to be major risk factors for developing more addiction issues in the family later on.
Interesting, thank you. Any questions or comments? Seeing no objections.
Item 2, approval of a subrecipient grant agreement with Northwest Family Services to expand access to school-based prevention programs. Agreement value is $100,000 for 1 year. Funding is through opioid settlement funds. No county general funds are involved.
So again, Northwest Family Services, and this is to expand a program you're very familiar with, PreventNet, which is school-based substance prevention programs. And this is going to expand us to Tumwater Middle School and Milwaukee High School, which will now bring us to 11 schools that we have partnerships with in order to reduce substance misuse and opioid use among Clackamas County's youth. And so this is providing evidence-based prevention education.
Questions or comments? Seeing no objections.
Item 3, approval of a subrecipient grant agreement with the Fourth Dimension Recovery Center for expanding treatment of substance abuse disorders. Agreement value is $99,900 $99,995.14 for 1 year. Funding is through opioid settlement funds. No county general funds are involved.
So this is the last agreement for today. So this is Fourth Dimension, and they're going to expand the recovery program to street-level outreach, focusing on public safety partnerships, treatment engagement, and resource navigation for young adults with substance use disorder and homelessness.
Questions or comments? Commissioner Scholl.
Yeah, okay, thank you. My note from yesterday was, is this a 24/7 project? And you said it's a street outreach project.
Correct.
So there's no in-house treatment involved with this Fourth Dimension Recovery Center. Is that right?
Right. So what this grant is specifically paying for is for these outreach teams, which are comprised, of certified recovery mentors with lived experience in SUD, homelessness, and incarceration, and they effectively engage folks on the street. So there's an aspect of Recovery Center, but we're specifically granting to do the street outreach.
The outreach, okay. And so is this a new contract with this Fourth Dimension Recovery Center?
I do believe so.
Okay.
I can check.
And can you tell me how many people in Clackamas County they have done outreach with? I like to get an idea of their effectiveness. The amount of the contract for 1 year, $99,000, is, when we look at outreach, mental health issues, addiction, is a small number.
Yeah.
But I would be, as we look at our efforts to put together our own recovery center, I'm always interested in what the number of people in the county are who are benefiting from this, any particular service.
It's a very good question, Commissioner Scholl. So I will find out exactly how many they have outreached for in the past and what we aim to do with this grant.
Yeah, and that's going to give us an idea of better idea of the degree of the problem in the county. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner West?
And this doesn't totally answer Commissioner Scholl's question, but they do give out a lot of naloxone. So they've given out 2,279 naloxone, engaged 2,248 people here in the county, and they made 466 recovery-oriented referrals. They do a lot of peer, I know this group does a lot of peer services, help with drop-in center stuff. They're kind of a wraparound services. They work a lot with young adults. Specifically, they're known for that. I wish we could get more than 466 people into recovery-oriented services, but they are engaging with the community, it looks like, at least, often using naloxone as a stepping point to engage with those individuals.
Thank you, Commissioner West.
Any further questions or comments? See no objections.
Item 4, approval of an intergovernmental agreement with Oregon State University for a healthy private well stewardship. Agreement value is $50,350 for 10 months. Funding is through the Oregon Health Authority. No county general funds are involved.
So nearly 23% of Oregon's population relies on domestic wells for drinking water. Clackamas County has over 24,000 private wells. Currently, we do not have programs to educate residents on the safety and protection of these wells. So to mitigate this, Oregon State University College of Public Health and Clackamas County Environmental Health are collaborating to promote healthy domestic well stewardship throughout the county with workshops, screening events, and testing for environmental contaminants. And the project aims to reduce the risk of residents drinking contaminated water from domestic wells. The project will raise awareness about drinking water quality and inform residents about their water quality by doing some testing for them as well.
Questions or comments? See no objections.
Item 5, approval to apply to the Veterans Health Administration Innovation Ecosystem Suicide Prevention Grant to develop and implement new strategies in reducing Oregon's veteran suicide rate. Anticipated value is $750,000 for 2 years. Funding is through the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. No county general funds are involved.
So unfortunately, the suicide rate in Clackamas County remains higher than the national average. We rank 13th highest in the country. In 2020, 128 Oregon veterans died by suicide. a figure that is also significantly higher than the national average, with over 60% of all fatal suicides involving firearms. This grant will strengthen partnerships between the Public Health Division and community partners to enhance suicide prevention planning with a particular emphasis on veteran suicide prevention. And how we do this is to establish networks of community partners, gun shops, and veteran organizations focusing on secure firearm storage, enhancing storage practices, and addressing self-defense challenges. And you know we give away the gun safe boxes for rifles and small guns as well.
Denise, do we, what's the percentage of the suicides in Clackamas County are veterans? Do you know?
No, I don't, but I can find out. It's a great question.
I'd like the total number if you
Yep.
could. I'm just very curious since we are 13th.
Yep.
Highest in America. That's not a number I'm proud of, that's for sure. Commissioner Scholl?
Denise, did I hear you correctly when you said we're the 13th highest county in the nation, or do you mean the 13th highest state in the nation?
13th highest in the nation.
County. You mean to tell me out of 3,400, almost 3,400 counties, Clackamas County is the 13th highest in the nation?
That is what this information tells me. I will double check that for you.
Double check that for me,
Yep.
please. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions? See no objections.
Item 6, approval of an amendment updating the language and adjusting the rate of a revenue intergovernmental agreement with the state of Oregon for the Public Health Medicaid Administrative Claiming Program. The amendment has no fiscal impact. The agreement value remains at $1.9 million for 5 years. Funding is through the Oregon Health Authority. No county general funds are involved.
So this is essentially a housekeeping item. The Public Health Medicaid Administrative Claiming Program is a reimbursement mechanism Oregon County Health Departments use in order to cover administrative activities that are not reimbursed by Medicaid. And those types of activities are outreach, health education, transportation services, interpretation services, and very importantly, contacting Medicaid-eligible community members about Medicaid enrollment and essential preventive services, and then helping provide referral services for them.
Questions or comments? See no objections.
Item 7, approval of a personal services contract with Technical Resource Management for behavioral health laboratory testing services. Contract value is $900,000 for 5 years. Funding is through fees for services. No county general funds are involved. Please describe fees and services from whom?
So this would be for our health centers, right? So fees for service are what we charged for health center services. And this is specifically supporting drug testing for treatment court programs for substance use disorder, including adult drug court, mental health court, and DUI court. So we have requirements by HRSA in order to do drug testing with these courts as part of the programming, and that's what this is for.
Further questions or comments? See no objections.
Item 8, approval of an amendment to a fixed-price revenue subagreement from Oregon State University for a parenting education program. Amendment value is $98,035 for 1 year. Total agreement value increased to $274,098 for 2 years. Funding is through Oregon State University. No county general funds are involved.
So this is pretty exciting. Clackamas Parenting Together is celebrating its 10-year commitment to parenting education in Clackamas County, where it functions as a critical funding source and networking hub for county staff, nonprofit partners, and local families. And what we do is on-demand, evidence-based courses like Active Parenting Teens, Incredible Infants, and Make Parenting a Pleasure are conducted by our county staff and our nonprofit partners, assisting in parenting education in our respective communities across the county.
Questions or comments? Seeing no objections.
Item 9, approval of a public improvement contract with Pacific Sun Construction for the Phase 2 of Haven House Building Improvements Project. Agreement value is $567,576,000.20 for 10 months. Funding is through Federal Community Development Block Grant Funds. No county general funds are involved.
So the Haven House improvements, Phase 2, will enhance the health and safety of residents in a county-owned transitional housing facility that has 12 beds. The project involves extensive internal renovations, including mold remediation, ADA bathrooms, plumbing and electrical upgrades, energy-efficient heating and cooling systems, new flooring, and a new kitchen and appliances. And essentially, We are working to preserve an aging asset, which is housing a very vulnerable population of folks who are transitioning from incarceration to community and who are diagnosed with a mental health condition. And we partner strongly with the Sheriff's Office with this.
When will the renovations be complete?
I think they're just starting, so I can give you a date. We had just done some roofing replacement there as well.
Are we moving the residents out while renovations
I
are
believe
happening?
so, yes, yep.
Questions or comments from commissioners? Seeing none.
Item 10, approval to apply for a statewide transportation improvement fund discretionary grant for updating the Clackamas County Transit Development Plan. Application value is $300,000 for 2 years. Funding is through statewide transportation improvement funds. No county general funds are involved.
So this and the next couple items include request to apply for statewide transportation improvement funds, STIF for short, which is funded by payroll taxes. This first one will fund us in updating the Clackamas County's Transit Development Plan by 2026. It's a collaborative process by social services and DTD, and our last update was in 2021. It's very vital for future transit planning and securing funding. And this initiative will refine service recommendations, investigate new shuttle options, and improve coordination with other transit providers to enhance connectivity between rural and urban areas.
Questions or comments? Seeing no objections.
Item 11, approval to apply for a statewide transportation improvement fund discretionary grant for the support of the Mount Hood Transit Enhancements Project. Application value is $450,000 for 2 years. Funding is through statewide transportation improvement funds. No county general funds are involved.
Also a pretty exciting project. So Clackamas County has been awarded $850,000 in congressionally delegated spending for a public restroom and park and ride on Mount Hood, crucial for the rest stop relocation project. And the grant requires a 20% match, which STIF discretionary funding will cover. Additional funds are also requested for project management to ensure successful implementation of the project.
Questions or comments? Seeing no objections.
Item 12, approval to apply for a statewide transportation improvement fund discretionary grant for the purchase of 2 new vehicles for use on the Mount Hood Express. Application value is $350,000 for 2 years. Funding is through statewide transportation improvement funds. No county general funds are involved.
So through this grant, we'll be able to acquire 2 new commuter buses that will enhance connectivity from Sandy to Government Camp and the Timberline Lodge, while the 16-passenger Cutaway will support the village's shuttle. These are this rural area's sole public transit options and crucial for local residents and visitors. These are diesel, not electric.
Questions or comments? Seeing none.
Okay, thank you. Next, transportation and development. Item 1, approval of an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Oregon City to transfer a portion of South Forsyth Road. Total value is $23,590. Funding through Community Road Fund. No county general funds are involved. Dan Johnson, Director of Transportation and Development. Go ahead, please.
Good morning again. Essentially, road transfers you are very familiar with, and essentially this is a road transfer agreement we're looking to enter in with the City of Oregon City. It's about 15,000 square feet approximately. Approximate cost, which is the cost for a 2-inch overlay, which is the requirement per our UGMA agreements, is about $23,000, $23,500, give or take. But essentially what we do is by transferring this road to the city, we defray all additional long-term maintenance obligation for this particular section of roadway, which is good for the county. I'd be happy to answer your questions you might have.
Questions or comments? Seeing no objections.
Item 2, approval of an intergovernmental agreement with Water Environment Services for right-of-way services. Total value is $225,000 for 5 years. Funding is through Water Environment Services, sanitary sewer and surface water construction funds. No county general funds are involved.
Quick shout out to you may not know this, but you have an amazing right-of-way group in DTD. They do right-of-way negotiations for all kinds of projects that we have in play right now. And through a good cooperative discussion with Water Environment Services, we are looking to extend those services to Wes for some particular projects that Greg informed you of earlier. Essentially, this is a cooperative agreement using our staff efficiently and effectively. There's a lot of pluses associated with it, but we have the capacity. We're here to help. It's a good move. So I'd be happy to answer your questions you might have.
Questions or comments? Seeing no objections.
Item 3, approval of an amendment to an intergovernmental agreement with the State of Oregon for the Fire Hardening Grant Program. Amendment has no fiscal impact. Agreement value remains at $172,072. Funding through the State of Oregon. No county general funds are involved.
I want to spend just a little bit of time on this. So if you recall, there was a state program where funds were dedicated to provide a fire hardening grant program for those individuals who were impacted by the fires that we had here in Clackamas County. It's a statewide program. We then entered into an intergovernmental agreement with the state to facilitate that program through our Building Services Department. I am here to tell you that we have done that and have been continuing to do that. And if you look on page 2 of the report, you will see that essentially we had 25 applicants for those funds. We were able to approve in advance. I say we because there were mutual decisions on whether or not folks wanted to move forward on that. But essentially, we were able to authorize payment to 17 of those 25 applicants to the tune of about $70,000. Essentially, those are improvements that go into make facilities or structures in these areas more fire resilient, roofing, clear zones, siding, et cetera. We're looking to amend this because essentially, per the IGA, we aren't seeing a lot of interest in the program right now. Essentially, those who were interested have come to us and have talked to us about it. But what happens is, per the IGA we currently have, there are administrative requirements that we are paying for now, though no one's using the program, okay? And so essentially the state and our building folks have talked, and the thought is looking to basically end the IGA right now, by December of this year, okay? Having said that, that does not mean that if we have anybody in the future that comes forward that may want these services, the state has said they will help facilitate that to get the monies and services to them, and we will be there to assist them through that process as well. Essentially, what this does is this amendment puts an end to our requirements on the administrative end, hence saving us money on the building services, because a lot of the interest in this program is kind of waning down. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Interesting. Have we done outreach to the people who've been
Yes.
affected? So we've contacted
Direct.
them. And I assume it's a certain criteria.
Correct.
Okay.
Only for certain improvements that are established through the state's mandate through the funding. Again, it's great to see that we've had, again, this goes to the buildings that were lost in the fire. There are other counties that had significantly more impacts, not minimizing the impacts to our citizens, but I'm just happy to say that those who were interested in it, in fact, we've got one more, that's why we said December. Some last-minute inquiry we had just here recently, but that December date allows us time to kind of get that person through the program under our assistance, and then, but again, the state will still facilitate the program going forward if there's future interest from somebody.
Questions or comments? See no objections.
Item 4, approval of a funding agreement with Clackamas County Arts Alliance to support businesses, organizations, entrepreneurs, and public art exhibitions throughout the county. Agreement value is $110,000 for 1 year. Funding through county allocated lottery dollars. No county general funds are involved.
June 26th of this year, we had the pleasure of coming before you and talking about the use of lottery dollars and what those were going to fund. They were associated with dues memberships and also some programmatic desires from the board. Essentially, the board authorized us to fund the Arts Alliance to the tune of $110,000. This agreement puts that funding into place. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Commissioner Scholl.
Yeah, good morning, Dan.
Morning.
In about 9 months, we're going to see our new courthouse open. The Clackamas County Arts Alliance, in this agenda item, I don't see anything in here about a focus on the courthouse.
So that was done through a separate agreement and a separate installment last year. That has been documented and authorized, and they're advancing on that.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions or comments? See no objections.
Item 5, approval of a funding agreement with the Museum of the Oregon Territory to provide educational programs, cultural and historical preservation, and to maintain and manage the facility and venue. Agreement value is $100,000 for 1 year. Funding through county allocated lottery dollars. No county general funds are involved.
The Museum of the Oregon Territory, also known as MOOT, essentially we were back, again, as with the prior item, in June of 26, here talking with the board as a part of that process and that discussion. You authorized or requested staff advance an agreement with MOOT to fund them to the tune of $100,000. Essentially, the agreement before you today finalizes that and authorizes that funding to go forward per the board's direction.
Questions or comments? See no objections.
Item 6, approval of an intergovernmental agreement with the Oregon Department of Transportation for technical services on the OR 224 at Omsiger Road Roundabout Project. Total value is $35,000. Funding through the Community Road Fund. No county general funds are involved.
So we have, in very limited situations, we have county roads that intersect with state roads. This particular intersection was one that went through our community road fund and was looked at as a priority based off congestion issues that were down there and safety issues associated with that intersection. As a part of that, it's a part of our plan to move forward to improve that intersection. Essentially, these dollars through this agreement allow ODOT staff to review and authorize our project on this particular area and improvement. I'd be happy to answer, which is standard practice, make sure we're standard practice through anywhere where we're partnering with the state. They ask for some financial assistance to help pay for staff time to review those projects that we are bringing forward for them to consider.
Questions or comments?
Just, what state highway?
224.
A roundabout?
Yep. We look at, I mean, in discussions around those projects, I couldn't get into the specifics with you, in all honesty, but I think that when we look at any of these intersections, there are a variety of different options that are there. Those options and those choices that we make on what project to move forward are based off data. And they're based off volume, capacity, they're based off, I mean, Molala's got a one down off 213, which is kind of mind-blowing, but it operates. And so essentially this was chosen to be the most prudent and safe option for this particular area. As you know, roundabouts, they provide a lot of capacity improvement associated with them. They all also have less excessive crash histories associated with them because the crashes are slower as they move into those turns versus the intersections associated with it.
Commissioner Schull?
Yes. Many people think that a roundabout on 224 is an odd thing. Does the ODOT have some design parameters for roundabouts on highways like 224 to accommodate heavy traffic like logging trucks and such things like that?
Yeah, I mean, essentially, when you look at the roundabout, we'll back up. They do have precedents. We just had the one down off 213. Yeah, down in Molalla. Yeah, and essentially, when we look at roundabout design, they take those kind of design considerations. I don't care if it's urban, rural, whatever it may be. I mean, we see trucks as large or larger in some of our urban areas, like a WB64 is, I think, about the largest truck you can have out there. And those, in many cases, are larger than the lumber or timber trucks that you're seeing on the road area.
Yeah,
Yep.
okay, thank you.
I'm looking at the map. This looks like it's in rural, like farms are around this one.
Yeah. Goes up from 224 to Loring.
I see, okay. Thank you. Further questions? Seeing no objections.
Item 7, approval to apply for a Metro Regional Flexible Funds allocation for the Sunrise Corridor. Funding request is $15 million, funding through Metro Regional Flexible Funds Bond with matching funds through the County Road Fund. No county general funds are involved. There is also a support letter that we're asking for your approval to send, which we'll discuss as part of this item as well. Go ahead, please. Joining us, Mike Besner, Assistant Director, Transportation and Development.
Just asking Mike to join me because he and Jamie Stasny have been intimately familiar with this and the coordination around it. So essentially, Metro essentially is our MPO, our Metropolitan Planning Organization. So essentially, they can dictate and develop standards and criteria for use of various dollars associated with it. And basically, they are responsible, and JPAC, for allocating and administering federal transportation dollars. Every 3 years, Metro conducts a process to select specific investments to make in the regional transportation system and the use of these dollars. And this process is known as the Regional Flexible Funds Allocation, RFA, okay? There's a lot of info in here about kind of steps associated with it, et cetera, but essentially what you do is we've taken a look at the criteria that you have and the letter attached, and they're, through some, in all honesty, some great work by Commissioner Savas looking at transit and the last mile connections and all the things associated with that. We've been able to develop an application that has fit into kind of this transit niche or dialogue, but also supports advancing the project, ODOT's project as a whole. Essentially, we can't provide these transit improvements if we aren't able to advance kind of the revised Sunrise design that's under consideration by the community right now through Jamie Stastny's project, the Sunrise Visioning. So essentially what you see is a request on ODOT's behalf to apply for up to $15 million. And what that $15 million essentially would be directed towards is essentially integrating this new design into the final environmental impact statement. If you think about it right now, think about it in your head, that statement right now says, hey, we're going to go out there and build ODOT's going to go out there and they're going to build an 8-lane freeway. It's probably not going to happen, okay? Just going to be frank and honest with you. There's not funding for that. What this does, what these dollars would do, would allow us to allow ODOT to integrate whatever comes out of that revision on that Sunrise project, integrate those changes into that study and revise that information, which is a major step forward. A significant process that allows us to get more formally acknowledged by the feds and the design, whatever it might be. It also allows some to move a design for that particular section forward, more from kind of a general concept on maps and 2-dimensional and 3-dimensional maps to more of a kind of a 10% conceptual engineering design for the project. It is us asking to apply on ODOT's behalf for these dollars, because again, the project is ODOT's dollars, and they have done great work to become competitive for these dollars. These dollars can go out to anybody else. I mean, and we try to Jamie and Mike and their group, Karen Burg and others, have worked very hard to try to figure out how we slide this particular project into this particular funding source. So again, there's essentially the life cycle form and the ability to apply for this grant, number one. And then two, there's a letter of support from the board. And you'll see that, while it has and highlights the necessity and the benefit to transit, it also highlights things such as, the growth that we're expecting out in Happy Valley, the freight that is along this corridor, et cetera. So we tried to mix a lot of those concerns that we see out there, but also make sure it remains consistent with the objectives of the grant or bond request, dollar request we're looking for this particular program. I'd be happy to answer your questions, what you might have.
Thank you, Commissioners. Take a look at the support letter. When is this due, this grant application due?
Friday.
Friday. And we can decide to approve this, I assume we would, and submit the support letter or not.
Yeah.
So I'm opening that up to discussions.
Can I speak to that for 1 second? To your one question? We are intentionally trying, we want to make sure, I hate when these things come last minute. And we are trying our best to get these in front of you to give enough time if there's like tweaks or adjustments you'd like to see. So we apologize for the timing today. We are dealing with timelines that we can't control, to be honest. But I want to make sure that I don't like the position you're in where we're asking you to approve this stuff so quickly, but I just wanted to acknowledge that for the discussion.
Okay, Commissioner Savas?
Yeah, just to add a little bit of context to this, this discussion has been occurring at JPACT and Metro for the last several months, and one of my issues I've had heartburn with is that is that the timeline for this has been not ours, but theirs, is the tightest I've ever seen, right? Just a matter of weeks in which they initiated this. You have a deadline until September 6th, if I recall right, which I think is Friday. I objected to that, just so you know, that the timeline was too short and didn't give us a whole lot of time for our staff to put something together. So I think it's miraculous that, to some degree, that you were able to thread a needle, perhaps with ODOT, to apply for these dollars. That's the second issue. The second issue is, by Dan accurately stating, they create their own criteria, and by doing such, it makes it very hard to qualify to apply for these dollars, because they narrowed it down to something that is more, I'll just say, probably more metropolitan-like than Clackamas-like. So, I've been making a lot of noise about this, and so I appreciate staff finding a way to apply for this, and the timeline is not something that, with our break and everything, it is what it is. But really, the biggest time crunch for them was actually to put something together to apply for this, not us approving a letter so much. So thank you for everything you've all done.
Thank you for that. Commissioner Scholl.
Gentlemen, a year ago or so, as I recall, we were supposed to get a concept briefing from the engineering firm that's working on the 122nd, 172nd concept. Is that not going to happen? And the other question is, this 15 million is to integrate what you said is the new design, correct? But what is the new design? I mean, exactly what is that going to look like? Again, it was my understanding a year ago, or a little bit more than a year ago, that by December 2024, we were supposed to get a, be able to look at 3 different concepts for the track, potential track of the next phase of the Sunrise. And I think it was 10, what I heard was 10 to 15% engineering on the vertical and horizontal engineering. Is that not true?
So, first thing, I don't recall the exact schedule for giving the board a briefing, but we can give the board a briefing at any time that the board requests it for the Sunrise project.
Oh,
So
okay.
I want to be clear with that.
Okay, because right now, I have no idea where that engineer, that $4 million
Yes.
for Jacobs Engineering to work with you on the study, where that's at, what we're looking at. Is it, I know that you've been doing a lot of outreach with the public on this, but I just can't help but wonder, where we're at and what their work, what has come out. What's going to be the impact on that area of the county? And is it going to be something that's going to be accepted by the people of the county, in particular the people who live and work and have businesses around there? Or is this something that is going to be, like I see here, where it says in your information, ODOT's Sunrise Project?
So, great question. Actually, there's a steering committee meeting tonight that Commissioner Savas serves on. This has been a very robust process. There are multiple committees, some with people who only live right there and work right there or own businesses right there. The steering committee, there's a leadership committee for people that live there to get more involved. The public involvement on this is more than I think any project we have ever done in my career here. So there's another public open house, I think it's September 25th. It's late on a Wednesday, later in September. So there are so many opportunities for people to weigh in. And we don't have a solution yet, but we have concepts that are being developed and people are commenting on. So, I mean, the public portion of it is people have many, many opportunities to be heard.
Okay, thank you.
And to follow up on that, once we get the feedback from that engagement, will be the time that we should be coming forward to the board and sharing this information. And I want to be crystal clear. The $4 million we received from the state was essentially an effort to go out and engage the community directly on what they would like to see or what they felt was a more appropriate improvement in that particular area. And that project is still ODOT's. It's us helping engage our community in our area to educate a discussion with the state and ODOT about what this project should, could, and needs to be. Then the next step is once that gets done, once the alignment gets picked, then it's formalizing that through, and that's what these dollars would do. It kind of formalize that into the more federal documents, et cetera, that then key into the additional funding and discussion about design and construction at a later date.
Sorry, the one other thing you did mention was a 10% design, and that will not be part of the $4 million.
Okay.
Okay, Gary, you had a comment?
We're going to do more frequent updates with the board, gentlemen, so whether it's email or issues, discussions, I'll work with you. But the board clearly wants more information, so we'll give that to you. Thank you.
Commissioner Savas?
Yeah, I just want to say that it's still like in the early stages, so to apply for this is now. The definition of what the project might be for these rough dollars comes in later and probably be coordinated with approval of whatever alignment or design and so forth. So all those details are not established, but will be.
Thank you. Commissioners, do you want to send this letter of support? And Gary, do we entertain a motion for that?
Yes, please.
I'll listen to a motion.
I move to support the letter.
Commissioner Savas has moved that we send the support letter, and Commissioner Schrader has seconded the motion. Do all commissioners want to sign this letter?
Sure.
Yes, I believe we do. Thank you. Would the clerk please take the poll?
Commissioner Savas.
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader. Aye. Commissioner West.
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl.
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much, and seeing no objections to the proposal put to us today, we'll hear it again tomorrow.
Very good, thank you. Item 8, approval of a resolution declaring the public necessity and purpose for acquisition of right-of-way, easements, and fee property, and authorizing good faith negotiations and condemnation actions for the Johnson Creek Boulevard 79th Place to end of county maintenance improvement project. Total project value is $6,173,749. Funding is through State House Bill 2017 funds. No county general funds are involved.
I'm not sure how frequently you drive Johnson Creek Boulevard, but essentially, if you can envision in your mind, start on set, like where Fred Meyers is at, 79th, around that area, and you head west. You don't feel it when you drive, but you feel that it takes a turn to the north. Essentially, we are looking to improve all the pavement along that section of roadway from 79th to the end of where we have maintenance responsibility, okay? And as we have talked with you, do this educational process about ADA improvements, whenever we go out there in an urban area and we do improvements to our urban roadways, we are required to basically go back and upgrade ADA facilities associated with those road improvements, be it grind and inlay, whatever it may be, okay? This is essentially, and this is a little bit different. You do these rights to necessity when we do large-scale capital projects or culvert replacements or any capital project where we have right-of-way negotiations. This is very similar. All it opens up is the ability for our good right-of-way staff, great right-of-way staff, to go have good faith negotiations with property owners that may have some impacts on their property to try to secure interest to allow us to go and do those ADA improvements. It just has a little different bend to it because usually it's around capital, not around maintenance and preservation and road servicing. But I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Questions or comments? Seeing no objections?
Item 9, approval of a personal services contract with Kittleson and Associates for the Stafford 65th Ellingson Roundabout Project. Total contract value is $1,407,863.44. Funding through the Strategic Investment Fund, Community Road Fund, Countywide Transportation System Development Charges, and local agencies. No county general funds are involved.
I totally lost my notes on this, so I'm going to wing this. Essentially, we have a contract before you to assist with the design of this particular project that is near and dear to some of our hearts. It's like any other additional contract. What's different, though, and I think we should highlight the importance of our partnerships, we have a financing or a funding partnership with the city of Wilsonville that's been put into play, and we also have a partnership that is on the verge of being approved with Washington County. Which is great. So this is located in a very kind of confluence of city, county, all in that area. They have been willing partners to participate in this particular improvement. In fact, Washington County is looking to assume kind of right-of-way requirements for acquisition and payment for anything in Washington County, which is fabulous. Essentially, approval of this contract will initiate design, move design forward. I do want to, before I even get the question, we have funding scheduled in future years to cover construction costs associated with it. When we look at our 5-year forecast for capital construction, obviously we look at design and then we look at construction. We do have those dollars available and programmed for future construction of the project. We don't design them if we don't think we can build them, okay? I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Commissioner West?
I can tell you that the mayor of Wilsonville, the residents of Wilsonville are super excited about this. This is a long time coming. Thank you for your work on this. In the packet here, it says the travel lanes will be widened to a consistent 12-foot width and a 6-foot wide bike lanes added at the intersection approaches. Additionally, replacement of the existing culverts at Beckman Creek, stormwater management facilities, and street lighting at the roundabout will be included in the project. So my question is, are some of these things such as bike lanes, because if I look at the road, I don't even think there are bike lanes. It's definitely a county rural type road, all kind of coming together in this dysfunctional intersection. Are the bike lanes going up to a roundabout or part of, are those required? Are those just making things more expensive? I don't know why we'd have bike lanes there, to be honest. It's just knowing where this is at, why?
Well, and it's a great question. And so a couple things. One, we have roads that are in transition. They may be rural right now, but they may be urban in the future. And so we struggle when we look at some of these improvements. We have another one, you can think about the Childs Road one, or the roundabout up there. I mean, it's in more of a rural area now, but it's an urban reserve, and who knows what the future of that area holds. And so what we do is when we're out there, it's like, if we're gonna be out there and we're gonna secure all the right-of-way and get everything we need, let's get what we can to allow for that area to transition in the future. I say that within the context of at what cost, at what benefit. If you think about the benefits of the bike lanes in this particular situation, they aren't always there just for bikes. They also provide clear zones and areas of safety improvements for those roundabouts, et cetera. I can get more information regarding the specific design of this and the intention of this and the benefit, but that's about all I can offer right now.
That would be super valuable to me. I just look at that intersection where it's at, how far out to that area being ever developed out significantly, and the real lack of usage in bikes at all in Wilsonville, as it's a commuter city based on where it's located. Like 90% of the population has to leave by car to go to work. There's a lot of bike lanes and not a lot of bikes. Yeah. And it just I'm just wondering if it's overbuilding and making it more expensive.
Yeah, we'll take a look at it.
Thanks.
Commissioner Savas?
Yeah, I just want to say, I was actually out there yesterday, stopping in the Frog Pond development and seeing someone I know out there who just sold his house for the development aspect of Frog Pond. And I can't believe how many homes are being built out there right now that are under construction. They're doing the groundwork and so forth. The amount of traffic on Stafford Road is constantly increasing as a result of this. Shout out to DTD for the signs, the lit signs with the speed limit.
Yeah.
I don't know, I maybe, again, it's anecdotal, but I noticed a huge safety. Usually I'm going the speed limit, 40, whatever it is, and people are passing me that are going 65, 70. That didn't happen yesterday, both there and back. But I want to say what a great improvement. But I do, as Dan kind of said, alluded to, that area is developed. I see a direct connection, really, frankly, sidewalks, probably in our lifetime, probably between the Frog Pond development and that intersection. But the traffic light, all those things are now making it safer, but it was horribly dangerous before. It probably still is. But I just think that there needs to be some safety elements to that street added.
Yeah.
And we might as well do it now as opposed to having to do it later, playing catch up.
Thank you. Seeing no objections.
Item 10, approval of an amendment with PC Construction for added solar panels for the Gladstone Public Library project. Amendment value is $188,673.21. Funding through county sustainability funds. No county general funds are involved.
So a while back, we had talked about an earmark, requesting an earmark for some solar improvements to Oak Lodge and to Gladstone, and the board authorized that, and we've gone forward with that. What's happening is the timing really doesn't align to use those dollars associated with the Gladstone project, but we're going to use those dollars on the Oak Lodge project. And so essentially what we were looking at is the ability to provide those solar benefits in the Gladstone Library as well. How do we fund it, number one? And then number two, what's the benefit? To reduce the long-term costs and operation of that facility. So essentially we're pulling power, solar power that's essentially going into operation and reducing the long-term operational cost. This is a long time ago, but this is a little bit of history. So we basically have solar in a number of our buildings. One of our buildings is the Development Services building over here. I think it was back in 2011, 2012, we put that on there. We put that on there through a federal grant. That federal grant essentially allowed us to provide, to add solar to the building and basically push power back into the grid. And with that then, PGE was able to keep the green credits associated with that, but they paid us a stipend or dollars to essentially own those. It's around carbon reduction and all that nuances, but it's around them green credits associated with it. But they paid us for those. That equates to $30,000 to $40,000 a year. And then essentially our direction was to go out and make sure that we're using those dollars to provide other energy-efficient improvements to reduce operational costs for other buildings within the county. We've done that through, we're going to look at putting solar on the Transportation Services Building. We've done it through improvements over here at the jail. We've used some of those dollars to do those kind of projects that are out there. And it felt like a right fit to use those dollars associated with this facility to fund the solar improvements on this to reduce the operational costs, knowing that we had similar funds available to do one for the other library. So we wouldn't do one without the other. I know that's a lot of history for a simple amendment, but I thought it's important to share that.
Are you saying the solar panels cost $188,000 for Gladstone Library?
I'm saying the totality of the system does. When you think about the panels, the switching,
That's why I'm confused, because that's a small building.
it's the totality of all the work associated with it. It's the panels up top, the wiring associated with it. So essentially, we've done the conduit. I don't control the pricing, but it's unfortunate. But it does, in theory, you're looking at, I don't know what the exact cost of the utility is going to be for that particular building.
We have a target on our foreheads. Gee, government's going to do this. Let's see how far we can, stretch this out. Seriously, this is a lot of money for the size of the building. Gladstone Library is not a large building. That's my only objection to this. This cost is ridiculous. I know you guys think that's okay, but I think private sector, you get a lot less. Commissioner Scholl.
Dan, do you have an estimated period of payback for the green investment on the building?
Oh, so basically meaning when does it break even when it pays monthly electrical payments are covered by this versus, I can try to find something.
For that? I mean, is Commissioner or Chair Smith's concern about the cost would be mitigated if it could be shown that in X number of years, it pays itself back. That'd be interesting to know. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, well, I think it's good to hear that these monies are being derived from savings already enjoyed and anticipated in the future. So extending the same technology out elsewhere logically would have that return on investment, but also being mindful is that the PG rates are going up substantially. I don't know how many of you are looking at your local electrical bill.
Oh, yeah, they are.
Mine is going up a lot, and our usage is the same. And so be mindful, I think there is a payback for this. There better be a payback for this.
Thank you. Seeing no objections, Commissioners, we're going to take a 5-minute break, and we will return at 11:35. Thank you very much. Welcome back from our little break to the Clackamas County Board of Commissioners issues and updates on September 4, 2024. Administrator Gary Schmidt.
Thank you, Chair Smith. All the consent items you discussed will be on tomorrow's business meeting agenda. Next, Measure 110, Formula Funding Letter, Update and Response. You sent a letter before your break. We got a response. We want to tell you about it and have a discussion. So Tonya Holoweski, Interim Director, Public and Government Affairs. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Gary. Good morning, Commissioners. Tonya Holoweski, Interim Director, Public and Government Affairs. As Gary noted, on August 8th, you sent a letter to the Measure 110 Oversight and Accountability Council requesting they reconsider the recent changes to their funding formula. And if you remember, the funding formula decides substance use recovery funds through a grant program to the behavioral health resource centers across the state. It will also allocate funds to any future deflection programs that are distributed directly to the counties. So on August 14th, the council met again, and while the letter you sent was not discussed at the meeting, the tri-chairs did read a statement that I would like to read here today. Quote, "The tri-chairs on behalf of the OAC received a comment letter from Clackamas County regarding the 2025 through 2029 funding formula. We know not everyone agrees with the formula the AOC agreed to, but will not be making changes to the funding formula, as doing so would delay the next round of grant funding. Also, we are in the process of accepting applications for the grant funding, and we do not think it is appropriate for the OAC to consider a change to the funding in the middle of the process. We ask that any future comments or questions about the RFGA or request for grant application be directed to the single point of contact, unquote. So we are bringing this issue back to you today for your awareness. We do not have recommended next steps at this time, but could return to a future meeting with some proposals based on your discussion today.
We've had a lot of outreach and discussion. I've called the governor's office 3 times already. Her legislative director called back. We have sent a letter or 2. We have had a lot of media on this. Our district attorney has done fabulous work on trying to get this. At this point, I'm not sure exactly how we should proceed on this. Commissioner West, I believe you were first.
Yeah, maybe this is I think I'm being accurate, but it's definitely my impression for the public's edification to know what's happening here and why we're discussing this is that the funding from the Measure 110 dollars, Clackamas County is really not getting its fair share. We're being penalized because we've been successful. And they don't want to reward success with appropriate funding so that we can do replicatable policies and services out to the communities that need them the most. They are penalizing Clackamas County specifically because of our success. And they're not taking into consideration our population. We are half the size and population of Multnomah County, but we get a quarter of their funding amount. It's not right that we have such a large population and we don't get the funding we need. We actually, I believe, being the 3rd largest county, I believe we're the 7th in recipient of funds. I don't know if that's completely right, but it's right around there. If we want to really solve this problem, we need to put the money where it will be best utilized. We'll have the best outcomes. We need to make sure we're funding counties and local jurisdictions that are creative and innovative in solving the problem with dealing with the reality that the state has underfunded this problem for, Lord knows for how too long, for decades. Have refused to, has divested from this. I don't know what the next steps are yet either, but I know we had conversations with leaders in the legislature regarding this. We'll continue to have those conversations. I think it should be maybe a legislative priority of ours going forward to articulate this. If there's other counties that are facing a similar situation that way, we might be unique because of the amount of success that we have had. But I think maybe the Association of Oregon Counties would probably not be so keen on seeing the counties and the local governments funded this way. And I think that their response is not collaborative. I think that response is might as well be a middle finger. If it's broken, fix it. We can chew gum and walk at the same time. Local governments have to do it all the time. We have to solve problems while also doing policies at the same time, all the time. And I think it's been clear that this group doesn't have an interest, maybe it's political or ideological, than actually like creating a funding mechanism that solves the need. And they kind of did this funding mechanism on the fly, by the way. It wasn't like this well thought out collaborative think tank moment where they really got down to how to do this the best way to solve the crisis we all face. That is not what they did. It was very much on, let's see if this noodle sticks to the wall type of funding mechanism. And I think we're beyond that point now and we should try to solve it. Those are a couple suggestions that I have. I'm quite irritated, if you can't tell by the tone of my voice. And I think that that should absolutely be revisited in a way that actually gets the funding where it needs to go.
Thank you. Commissioner Savas?
I'm not as close to how this all evolved as my colleagues are, so I appreciate that insight. It would seem to me that any public process or public entity going through a process like this would have like when a formula comes out, you run it down, you run maybe all the counties in this case, run it through the score sheet, how do 30s county fare, run it by, get your feedback at everyone, and have a process, right, a public process. And it doesn't sound like maybe that happened. So if we weren't late at the switch, so to speak, to send a letter, but they really didn't do that kind of process, I think that's something we start, calling our legislators and saying, hey, this is wrong. I mean, if they're going to throw together a committee and not really involve us or acknowledge maybe a shortcoming, whatnot, but, I'm probably here today as as a former business person who got involved in the government because of a formula that was ill-conceived, which cost, our area millions of dollars to resolve. So that's how I got started. I realized that not a lot of people understand math, and formulas are usually math, but you gotta run it through the mill. And so my experience is that formulas especially ought to have the rigors of the constituents and the stakeholders.
Yeah.
You talk about talking to legislators. A couple have reached out to me saying they're going to be dropping legislation in the next session regarding this situation. And so I think that's probably a good tact we can take, see what they have in mind for that. I can tell you who those two legislators are if you're interested in that. Commissioner Schrader.
Yeah, I'm going to ask a question. Has the Association of Oregon Counties weighed in on this? Because I'm sure we're not the only county that's...
You're not on, Martha.
She is on, but she's got to speak in the mic.
Oh, okay, that's better, okay. So have we talked to the Association of Oregon Counties to see if this is systemic with other counties as well, in terms of funding, or is it the formula?
I don't know.
Okay, it's something...
I was going to say, let's have Trent come up and respond to that question.
I know they're having a retreat coming up in the middle of September, and it might be a good idea to bring that up.
Who is having a retreat?
The Association of Oregon Counties. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Trent Wilson, Government Affairs Manager. AOC has been aware of our advocacy on this issue. Clackamas County is sort of unique in this because of our success and how the formula is structured. There are variations for the other 36 counties in the state from like 12th to 13th, but nothing as drastic as 3rd to 6th or 7th. And so there has not been a lot of, I'd say, interest by AOC, or the Association of Oregon Counties, because for Clackamas County to move up, other counties move down. And the recent formula that the Measure 110 program produced specifically made it so that the bottom 5 or 6 counties had a higher floor. And so the formula concept was really to try to benefit really small, very small counties who were not receiving enough money to actually implement any programs at all. And so from AOC's perspective, thinking about the big picture as an association, I don't know if they have an appetite to really tackle the Measure 110 particular formula. But again, this is muddy, right? Because it's the Measure 110 money plus it's the deflection money that are all living under this formula right now. And I think that there is an interest to seeing or having a conversation around improving the deflection connection piece here, or separating the formula out from the other one. So that's where there might be a pathway.
Commissioner West?
Trent, I'm going to ask a question I know the answer to, but I think it's important to have on the record. We received less money for deflection also because it's based on this formula. They're conflated, correct? Both are funded through this formula.
Correct. This formula is the foundation for how the deflection money was distributed, and so as a result, we are not the 3rd highest funded. It's not based on population.
But being half the population of the largest county, the 3rd most populated county, and only getting a quarter of the funding, that's quite significant. Can you talk about the millions of dollars that are being potentially left on the table for Clackamas County to be more effective?
I don't have the deflection formula in hand. There was only about $20 million in general fund from the state for this like 8 or 9 month period for the deflection program. But yeah, I think Multnomah County received about roughly $4 million total. Washington County, Lane County were the next 2 highest funded. Lane County has a little bit less population than us, about 30, 40,000 people less than us, and less than Clackamas County. But then Deschutes County, Marion County, also significantly lower populations. They are receiving more money than Clackamas County to implement their deflection programs.
But also, we're receiving less money on our Measure 110 money by millions.
Correct. So this formula dropped us from, I think it was the 5th program into the 6th. I'm sorry, from the 6th into the 7th program.
From the 5th to the 7th.
Correct. Thank you. Again, not looking at it directly, but
5th to the 7th.
we dropped from 5th to 7th in the Measure 110 funding. Correct.
And how many millions is that potentially? What's that funding look like?
So it's $4 million. It's a 4-year formula. We were receiving. The county programs were eligible to receive about $27 million over a 4-year period, if it were going to be based on the previous 4 years. But for this next 4 years, it's about 21, almost $22 million. So it's about a $4 to $5 million drop because of the formula.
$1 million a year.
And we've heard specifically from our Burns on how this would impact them here locally, correct?
Correct. So I do want to say there is just less money in the Measure 110 world because there's been less cannabis dollar taxes coming in. So that is its own unique problem. But correct, the burn programs that were receiving funds from the Measure 110 formula, they had a ceiling for the last 4 years of about $27 million. Because there's less, there are less money for them to apply for, which means for any inflationary, grant request or anything like that, they might not be able to continue part of their program or be able to reapply. So yeah, there's less money available to those programs within Clackamas County.
So the legislators I talked to who want to fix this, yes, they're the ones that came up with this idea and allocated the monies, but none of them understand the formula or how it was contrived. And I think that's very important. I think if we want to be more successful at this, we really go the legislative route. And because there's some real interest in Clackamas County legislators to do this, because they're all scratching their heads on it. Commissioner Savas?
Yeah, I totally understand the principle of, larger counties maybe taking a little bit less to benefit the smaller counties that don't have very much. So I'm on record with that, understanding that principle and supporting that principle. And I know it's more complicated than just this, but however, to the point that if that's the case, then the larger counties, we'd all be paying a little bit or receiving a little bit less for the benefit, a little bit more. But it sounds like it's not even working that way as either. So that's where I struggle with this. And so therefore, again, however it was contrived and the math that goes along with it, we shouldn't be in this position. We should be, at least the 3 large counties or the 5 large counties should all be in the same boat. But we're not.
Okay, so what do you want from us?
Well, whatever you want us, however you want to proceed. It sounds like you want to not respond back, but turn our attention to
Do you have a response for us written?
No. No,
Okay,
we do
that's
not.
the first step. You need to bring us a response to see if we want to do that.
Okay.
I don't think it's going to do a snowball's bit of good. My opinion on that. We can respond, we can voice yet another objection. Maybe that'll help us in the legislation that we want to work on in this session. It's up to you, commissioners. Do you want PGE to bring back a response letter to this and make this one of our legislative priorities? This is the second question. Commissioner West.
I know the answer to this, but who makes up this board that decides the funding? Who are these people? Are they elected?
No.
They're appointed.
They're appointed. Who appoints them?
I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to that.
Okay. It seems like no coincidence to me that we're the only county, top performing, only county denied funding for deflection. Also determined off this algorithm. And then, which seemed wildly political and ideological and not actually based on the spirit or the intent or the purpose of that funding for deflection. Here we are again with our burns now being threatened and their ability to help this vulnerable population is now to me by some appointed bureaucrats with a different ideological opinion that hasn't worked, by the way, in the state of Oregon very well because we're in a crisis, are now, I believe, targeting Clackamas County to affect its funding, to be effective, because if we look successful, their bad policy is glaring to the public as being unsuccessful. So we're being penalized for success and for doing it the Clackamas County way. I think whatever communication we have, that should be public and should be clear. The public should know that we are clearly doing the right kind of things that they want us to do, and that we are pushing back against a long history of bad policies that have failed the public in this arena. And so I think it should be known that there's some ideological and political play here in a way that's hurting our ability to be effective.
Okay. Gary?
My suggestion, commissioners, is another letter is not going to do anything, but let's do a legislative fix. And now that there's legislative days coming up, right, September, that's a good opportunity for you commissioners and us to do some action. That'd be my suggestion.
And maybe we write a letter to send to legislators during legislative days. Do some fishing around about possible future legislation. I can give you 2 names. And then present the legislators, legislate with a letter, and then we take a more in-depth dive on this as the program goes out. Commissioner Shaw?
Basically, I was going to say the same thing, and we need to get the Clackamas caucus revved up on this issue and behind us. The other question is regarding funding from now till the end of the long session next year. What do we do to make up for the absence of funding in this program?
Well, we don't, because what I said during the negotiations, that Clackamas County would implement this program subject to adequate funding to carry it out. So we will continue with the program with X amount of dollars less available to us, because we're not going to backfill a mandate from the legislature that they did not fully fund. That's my opinion on it. Commissioner Savas?
You know, I just think that as much attention as is received and energy that's been put into this, all these efforts to deal with drug addiction and all these things, and all the facilities we're going to be standing up, all the staff that we're going to be hiring, and I want to say we, not just Clackamas, but all of us, everyone in the state, all the counties in the state. We need to have certainty, right? You need to have a consistent amount of resources, the certainty to do it. And if the message coming from the state is that we're just going to sprinkle a little bit of money and then all these programs will just survive, right? And they'll just continue to grow without any base, a funding base, is irresponsible. We're wasting state money if even the other counties that maybe even had funding, if that funding is not long-lived and planned for and funded and sustained, we're hiring, we're spending a lot, we're potentially wasting a lot of money. You don't just hire someone, stand up a building, and then have that funding be pulled back. It just needs to be more comprehensive and more responsible. And again, it needs to be some consistency. I said enough.
I know. It is very frustrating.
All right, thank you, commissioners. I think we have what we need. I'm hearing a request to come back with a legislative strategy or to incorporate this into our legislative strategy, which we can do. I do agree with you that a letter would probably not be effective, but I do think closing the loop, and I heard your frustration about their response being inadequate. Closing the loop might be a good milestone in creating a successful legislative strategy. So if you give us a chance to think about that, we may come back to you with a letter to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Gary?
Okay, next, review of your board business meeting agenda for tomorrow, Thursday, September 5th, 2024 at 10 a.m. You'll have the lengthy consent agenda list you reviewed today. You'll have a presentation to recognize our county employees for the Spirit of Excellence Awards. These are employees that model our core values, the top 10, so to speak, of employees for that. And that's your other regular course of business. If you have any questions on any item, please let me know prior to tomorrow, and staff and I are happy to answer it for you. Next, Chair Smith would like to discuss development-ready land strategy.
Yes, thank you. Commissioners, we've talked around the edges about really not having enough land to build homes that are affordable for people to buy and to site businesses. And we've also talked about initiating a study to figure out what we have available and what we need. And what I'd like to ask of you is if through our economic development team and their staff, if they can go ahead with that study at Clackamas County. We really, I think, need to build on the economic landscape and determine the criteria for needed sites to support the desired clusters we have in Clackamas County, to see what's available. Are we able to do this, or are we not able to do this to draw jobs? And explore the feasibility of a study. Have staff prepare something for us and bring it back to understand the usable land available, the developable land, and also, which is really important, the understanding that we have with our partners, and our partners are the cities, and to develop a scope of work that we would bring in other partners besides the cities and determine who those are and what grants are available for this. There are grants available for this. I think that we can go ahead on our own initially and get started on this. And the beauty of Clackamas County initiating this is we set the own criteria. We are not subject to something else that another regional government is going to dictate to us what they think we need. So that's why this would be the first step. we would have Laura Edmonds come back and Dan Johnson, whomever's involved in this, and try to determine what the parameters would be on that. Commissioner Schrader.
I think that's a great idea. I think we also need to do an in-depth assessment of our clusters. We haven't done that in a while, and see where the high growth areas are. Is it still healthcare? Is it metals manufacturing? And we used to, at one point, again, not so far in the distance past, have updates on all those clusters and where they are in the ecosystem of our economic development portfolio. So that's a really another good thing. And I do know we have other information. We've already done studies. I think they're old, but it wouldn't be a bad idea to just kind of dust them off and take a look at them as kind of a basis just to move forward with. And I think a thorough analysis will show, yeah, we are short. And we can figure out a way to hopefully make up some of those gaps if we get the study done. So great idea. I'm glad you brought it up, Chair.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
And I've just barely touched the surface of what this could look like, commissioners. We would all have our input. Commissioner Savas?
Yeah, I think actually a work session on this would probably be in order, and I'll just give you an example here. During the break, we gave a tour to two of the Metro councilors of the Sunrise Corridor, not last week, but the week before last. And one of the counselors is from the Washington County area, and the questions that he had asked were good and relevant questions, but it really demonstrated to me by where the conversation was going that some of the larger cities like Beaverton and Hillsborough and Tigard and so on, they really they're large populated cities. They have big tax base, they have a lot of revenue, they have a lot of staff, a lot of economic development, and they do a lot of things. So the questions really led to my response saying, well, actually, Clackamas County is made up of a lot of cities that are smaller, don't have that much staff. And, we use our chambers of commerce and so on. So we help. The county does more to try to help. But it seems to me that the other thing that we really lack in this conversation that was going, the resources for infrastructure, right? So transportation they have MSTEP, which is this sole funding source to build roads. And they do a lot of development or build roads in areas where they have industrial development and commercial, and they'll just build the roads, right? And that's a huge shot in the arm for a developer to come along and say, geez, I'll build a subdivision here, or I'll build an industrial complex here because now you built the road and laid the infrastructure in place as well. So to me, I think it's a greater discussion, not just the land, but the opportunities, the infrastructure, the access, the cost, and the relationship with the cities, if that's really what's in their bailiwick, right? Is that something that they want? What's in their comprehensive plan, if you want to call it that, for their development? How we bring all that together, because doing it on a one-off, I'm just realizing that I think that collective effort would yield better results, and maybe we can learn something from our neighbors around that are doing it well.
Commissioner Shull?
My point being perhaps a work session, have a greater discussion of what that
Of course,
scope will be.
that's why I'm bringing it here as our regular order of business. We bring things up during issues to discuss if we want to have a future policy session, what that looks like. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, thank you, Chair Smith, for bringing this up, because the idea is a good one. But the scope of work on this, to do it right, like Commissioner Savas was saying, is quite complex. Cities, our planning department, transportation and development, all these things have to come together. But to come up with a better idea of what we have available, what we need, and what areas of the county are going to be most conducive to expansion and zone changing to accommodate land for new homes is going to be very interesting to find out. But the sooner we do, the better.
Yeah, I think, we start the discussion around the availability of land and then see where it goes, what's available, what's not. Staff I've been talking to staff, and maybe Martha has too, about the economic development arm of this, and they're really excited to come present. So if it's okay, Commissioners, we are going to schedule a policy session on this, Gary.
Yes.
And I made notes with Commissioners' concerns and wants on this. And thank you very much.
All right, final item today is Commissioner Communications.
Commissioner Communications. Commissioner West, you're up.
I have none. I will save them for later.
Commissioner Schrader.
Yeah, I just want to mention one thing about the Willamette Falls and Landings Heritage Area. We are approaching a legislative milestone. The coalition is announcing the official rollout of legislation aimed at designating a 56 river mile portion of the Willamette River as a national heritage area. And this proposed bill will be presented to selected federal representatives in the coming weeks for consideration in the next congressional session. I attend those meetings, something we've been working on for years. I think this is a good sign that it's moving forward, and I'm hopeful that we can keep it on our federal legislative agenda. The other thing I wanted to mention is that I've spent the break perusing the Clackamas County Child Care Coalition's report on child care, and I will ask Caroline to forward you the information of their report, because I think there's going to be legislation moving forward in our state legislature, working pretty directly to increase capacity for the child care options, so we can have our workforce opportunities for folks who need the child care, and they can move up the ladder of prosperity. That's all I've got today.
Thank you. Commissioner Savas?
I'll hold my thoughts till tomorrow.
Commissioner Scholl?
Yes, thank you. During the first week of our recess, I was invited up to Timberline Lodge to meet with John Burton, the Director of Public Affairs and Marketing at Timberline, and was briefed on their concept for their development of the gondola project. Very, very exciting. Yesterday, Administrator Schmidt sent you an email with the slides on it, and I encourage you to look at it. The other thing in regards to that is the concern up there about the relocation of the rest area there at Government Camp, the parking and rest area. I would encourage us to do whatever we can to urge ODOT in making some progress on that project. The other thing I want to call to your attention is you've heard me talk many times about the Portland Water Bureau filtration plant out there in the Cottrell area. Now, one of the things that Portland Water Bureau said they would do once they began to do construction, which has started, they've got a mountain of dirt. It's got to be 250,000 cubic yards of material they moved around out there already. And so to do that, there's been a great deal of heavy truck traffic on Clackamas County roads in that area. I just want to call that to your attention because we're going to be seeing some wear and tear. We see some safety issues with this, the very, very large dump trucks, tandem dump truck trailers. So it's a concern of the people in that area, and I just want you to be aware that Portland Water Bureau didn't come through with the traffic monitoring that they said they would do. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, see no further business before this commission. We are adjourned.